I never expected to spend my 68th birthday sleeping in an abandoned garage, surrounded by the scent of motor oil and decades of dust. Yet there I was, fumbling with an unfamiliar key in the dark, tears blurring my vision as my son's words echoed in my mind. "You're just a useless old woman, Mom." What would you even do with a real inheritance? Dad knew that. My hand trembled as I finally slid the key into the rusted lock. The ancient door groaned as I pushed it open, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. And that's when I saw it. I froze. My breath caught as the light revealed what lay inside. This couldn't be possible. This couldn't be what Elliot had meant when he left me just a garage in his will. But let me back up. You need to understand how I ended up here, homeless on my birthday, clutching a suitcase containing what remained of my 42-year marriage. Because this story isn't just about shocking betrayal. It's about secrets, survival, and the most unexpected revenge my late husband could have planned. 3 weeks earlier, I'd stood beside my son Caleb in our attorney's office, both of us dressed in funeral black. What happened in that room would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. And what I discovered in that garage, it would change everything. Elliot and I had 42 good years together. We'd built a life, raised a son, and spent our final years in a beautiful Harborview Heights penthouse overlooking the bay. When he died of heart failure, I thought I knew everything about my husband. I was wrong. Mr. Alden, our family attorney, seemed unusually uncomfortable as he prepared to read the will. "Before I begin," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I want to assure you that everything is legally binding and precisely as Mr. Rowan instructed." Looking back, I should have recognized that warning. The reading passed in a blur, but certain phrases stood out with devastating clarity. "To my son, Caleb Rowan, I leave our penthouse residence and my primary investment portfolio." And then, almost as an afterthought, "To my beloved wife, Margaret Rowan, I leave the property located at 2140 Cobalt Avenue, the garage and its contents." A garage. After 42 years of marriage, my husband had left me a garage. Caleb's face transformed from solemn grief to barely suppressed triumph in an instant. His hand squeezed my shoulder slightly too hard as he whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure you're taken care of." I was too stunned to respond. Why would Elliot do this? Where was I supposed to live? The answers came brutally that evening when Caleb drove me back to what I still thought of as my home. I'd barely stepped through the door when he set my suitcase down in the entryway. "I think it would be best if you found somewhere else to stay, Mom." I stared at him, not comprehending. "What do you mean?" "The penthouse is mine now. It's in the will." His voice had that rehearsed quality he'd perfected in business dealings. "I'm having colleagues over tomorrow. I need to start making changes." "But where am I supposed to go?" Caleb shrugged, the gesture dismissive. "You could stay with Aunt Nora. Or there's always that garage Dad left you." His laugh had a cruel edge. "Why he left you that dump is beyond me. What are you going to do with it? Open a repair shop at your age?" That's when something shifted inside me. "Caleb, this is my home. Your father and I—" "It's not your home anymore." He cut me off, his voice hardening. "It's mine." Dad made that perfectly clear. I reached for a chair to steady myself. "I need time to find somewhere to go." That's when he said it, the words that would echo for hours afterward as I drove aimlessly around the city. "You're just a useless old woman, Mom. What would you even do with a real inheritance?" Dad knew that. The cruelty was so unexpected, so at odds with the son I thought I'd raised, that I couldn't even respond. I simply took my suitcase, my purse, and the key Mr. Alden had given me, and walked out. Hours later, I found myself on an unfamiliar street in the industrial district of Graybridge, staring at a dilapidated garage with a padlock on its door. It was my birthday. I was 68 years old and I had nowhere else to go. So here I was, standing in the open doorway, my flashlight revealing something that stopped my heart. The interior wasn't filled with junk or abandoned tools. The space before me contained 3 vehicles, each covered with custom-fitted cloth covers. But it was the gleaming object at the front that had frozen me in place. The unmistakable chrome grille of what appeared to be a Bentley R-Type Continental, its polished surface catching my flashlight like a beacon. What was this? And why had Elliot kept it secret? My fingers trembled as I pulled the cover from the Bentley, revealing a pristine 1954 model in smoke silver, identical to the one Elliot used to admire in those old magazines. The car gleamed as if it had just rolled off the factory floor. "Elliot," I whispered into the stillness, "what were you doing?" I moved to the next vehicle. A Jaguar XKSS emerged, its distinctive curves and racing pedigree unmistakable. The third cover concealed an Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale, its deep scarlet body glowing under the light. Each car was accompanied by leather portfolios containing documentation, provenance papers, maintenance records. Even I knew these weren't just nice old cars. That's when I noticed the envelope taped to the wall, my name written in Elliot's unmistakable handwriting. I found the light switch, flooding the garage with unexpected brightness from modern LED fixtures. The sudden illumination revealed this was no ordinary garage. Climate control systems, custom flooring, security features. This was a carefully designed automotive sanctuary. I sank onto a leather bench and opened the envelope with shaking hands. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've discovered what I've come to think of as my final gift to you. First, I need to say I'm sorry for the shock you must be feeling. The secrecy wasn't meant to hurt you, but to protect what I was building for your future." I paused, blinking back tears. Elliot's diagnosis had been devastating, but I'd had no idea he'd been planning for the end from the very beginning. 6 years ago, when I received my diagnosis, the doctors gave me 5 years at best. I knew our time was limited, and I needed to ensure you would be taken care of. I know you're wondering about the will, about why I would leave our home to Caleb. Believe me, this decision caused me more sleepless nights than my health ever did. My hands shook as I continued reading. But over the past decade, I've watched our son change. The ambitious boy we raised has become something different, something harder than I ever wanted him to be. I feared what would happen if I left everything to both of you jointly. Caleb would have found ways to control the assets, to manage your portion for your benefit. I've seen how he speaks to you when he thinks I'm not listening. A tear splashed onto the paper. I hadn't realized Elliot had noticed. So I created this split inheritance with deliberate intentions. Caleb has received what he will see as the valuable portion, the penthouse, the visible investments, the status symbols. But what you're looking at now, my love, is the real wealth. These 3 cars alone are worth approximately $12 million. $12 million. I looked up at the 3 silent machines, their surfaces reflecting the overhead lights. But the cars are just the beginning. In the safe behind the photograph of us in Belmere, combination is our anniversary. You'll find documentation for investment properties I've acquired over the past 6 years, all placed in a trust that transferred to your name upon my death. I could barely breathe. I found the safe behind our anniversary photo, Elliot and me on the Belmere Bridge, laughing. It opened with a soft click. Inside was a thick portfolio labeled Estate of Elliot Rowan, Complete Asset Inventory for Margaret Rowan. Apartment buildings in North Crest, commercial property in Haverly City, a small vineyard in Maple Coast, stock portfolios, bonds, private equity investments. The total value at the bottom made my ears ring. I returned to Elliot's letter with numbed fingers. I know this is overwhelming. You're probably wondering why I didn't simply protect you through more conventional means. The truth is, I wanted to give Caleb a chance to show his true character. Perhaps, faced with his inheritance and responsibility for you, he would rise to become the man we raised him to be. Elliot had known. He had anticipated exactly what would happen. I've always believed that character reveals itself most clearly at moments of inheritance, both what we receive and what we believe we deserve. Caleb is receiving a test as much as an inheritance, and you, my love, are receiving the means to live the remainder of your life exactly as you choose, beholden to no one. I clutched the letter to my chest, tears flowing freely. After 42 years of marriage, I was only now discovering the true depth of his love and foresight. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hours ago, my son had thrown me out, calling me a useless old woman while believing he'd received the valuable inheritance. How wrong he had been about everything. That night, I discovered a small office adjoining the garage, with a bathroom, shower, mini refrigerator stocked with provisions, and even a closet with clothes in my size. My practical husband had anticipated I might need temporary shelter. One document particularly caught my attention: the deed to a cottage in Halcyon Bay, a coastal town we'd always loved. According to the paperwork, Elliot had purchased it 4 years ago, fully furnished and ready for occupancy. I had a home, a real home. As I fell asleep on the office sofa, I found myself wondering what expression would cross Caleb's face if he knew what was housed in the worthless garage. He had mocked. But that revelation, if it ever came, would be on my terms and my timeline. For now, I had the advantage of being underestimated. A useless old woman with a secret fortune and a growing determination to honor Elliot's final gift. 3 months passed. I'd settled into the Halcyon Bay cottage, a beautiful space Elliot had designed specifically for me. Every detail chosen with my preferences in mind. I'd established a comfortable system for managing the properties and investments, with help from excellent advisors. Caleb and I maintained strained contact through formal emails. He never apologized, never asked about my welfare. Then came the call from his assistant. "Mrs. Rowan, I'm Dana Reeves. I'm here because Caleb has experienced some significant financial setbacks. The renovation costs on the penthouse exceeded estimates by nearly double. Simultaneously, his primary investment failed. He's facing potential foreclosure." There it was, the request I'd been expecting. Not an apology, not reconciliation, a financial appeal. "Caleb needs your help," Dana said bluntly. "He's aware you have resources." I drove to the city the next day to see the penthouse for myself. What I found was sobering. The once elegant home had been gutted to the studs, construction equipment abandoned, expensive fixtures stacked haphazardly and damaged. Water damage spread through multiple rooms. "Mom," Caleb's voice carried through the gutted space. He appeared looking gaunt, his face showing the strain of sleepless nights. I overextended. The development opportunity seemed guaranteed, but environmental issues made it non-viable. The domino effect was comprehensive. I looked around at the destruction, both physical and financial. "Why didn't you reach out sooner?" His expression hardened. "After discovering Dad's manipulation and your role in it?" "Pride, I suppose." "I'm willing to help," I said carefully, "but not unconditionally. Not by simply writing a check." "What conditions?" "Come to Halcyon Bay tomorrow. We'll talk about a path forward that addresses both your immediate crisis and the underlying patterns that created it." The next day, on my cottage patio, I laid out my terms: complete financial transparency, professional management through independent trustees, therapy to address the patterns that led to this crisis. And one more thing: you make amends for how you treated me after your father's death. "Amends?" His voice was defensive. "What does that mean?" "It means acknowledging the harm done. It means understanding that relationships have consequences. I'm offering help as a mother who believes her son can be better than his recent behavior suggests." Something in my words penetrated his armor. He looked away, blinking rapidly. "I didn't mean what I said," he said quietly, "about you being useless." "Perhaps. But those words reflected an attitude you've harbored for some time." He didn't deny it. After 3 days of silence, Caleb called. "I'll do it. All of it. Whatever it takes." The journey since hasn't been easy. The financial restructuring required weeks of intensive work, uncovering debts worse than he'd initially disclosed. The penthouse was completed and sold. More challenging was the emotional work, weekly therapy sessions, honest conversations between us. 4 months later, spring had returned to Halcyon Bay. Caleb arrived at the cottage carrying a small package, his appearance noticeably different. Less polished executive, more relaxed human being. He'd even grown a beard that made him look remarkably like Elliot. "The penthouse closing is next week," he informed me over coffee. "We'll clear 40% more than initial estimates." "That's excellent news." "About my next steps," he said carefully. "I've been offered a position with a community development organization focusing on affordable housing projects." I raised my eyebrows. Caleb's career had always been luxury developments. It's a significant pay cut, but the trust covers basics, and it feels like meaningful work, using what I know for something beyond profit margins. I studied his face, noting genuine animation. "Your father would be pleased." Caleb reached for his package. "Speaking of Dad, I brought something." Inside was Elliot's collection of cufflinks, items Caleb had initially claimed for himself. "I kept these thinking they represented connection to Dad," he explained, "but I realized the real connection isn't in possessions." Beneath the cufflinks was my original wedding band, which I'd thought lost, and a small envelope in Elliot's handwriting. "For our 45th anniversary coming soon." The first band was a promise of the life we would build. This one celebrates the life we created. Inside was a receipt for a custom eternity band dated weeks before Elliot's death. "The jeweler still had the order," Caleb said, handing me a small box. "I picked it up for you." Inside was a delicate band of sapphires and diamonds, simple and elegant. I slipped it onto my finger alongside my wedding ring. "Oh, Elliot," I whispered. Caleb watched quietly, a softness in his expression I hadn't seen in years. That evening, I drove the Bentley R-Type Continental along the coastal highway, the powerful engine purring as I navigated curves Elliot had never seen me take. The setting sun transformed the ocean into molten gold. "You were right," I said aloud to Elliot's memory, "about so many things." The worthless garage that once represented my son's dismissal had transformed not only my circumstances, but our relationship. The inheritance that seemed cruelly imbalanced had proven to be Elliot's final act of wisdom and love. Whatever the future held, I would face it with the security of Elliot's planning behind me, the lessons of this year within me, and the hard-won wisdom of knowing my own worth. The garage key had ultimately unlocked something far more valuable than vintage cars, a new understanding of love, legacy, and the courage to begin again, no matter your age, no matter your circumstances.